Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and today we're going to be looking at the best Bloodseeker carry build for patch 7.37e. And then starting off with starting items, we have Quelling Blade, Tangos, a Magic Stick, which everybody is getting these days to start off, and then an Iron Branch and a Circlet. And you can switch this up a little bit, maybe not go for the Circlet, go for 3 Iron Branches or 2 Iron Branches and a Fairy Fire if you want. You're always going to be finishing the Magic Wand no matter what, but the Circlet really depends on whether or not you think you're going to finish a Null Talisman, a Wraith Band, or maybe you're even going to go into the Soul Ring. So these are the 3 early game items that you can alternate between. Most people are going for Null Talisman despite the fact that this is an agility carry, because you're going to be spamming Bloodright so much that extra mana and regen is really, really good for this hero, because Bloodright is really everything in the early part of the game. It's the harass, it's the silence, you know, it helps you kill, helps you push the wave, helps you jungle early, so that's why it's the focus, and that's why people even go for the Soul Ring. If you plan on going for the Soul Ring, you probably won't go for the Circlet. You might go for something else instead. Some people are getting Wraith Band, but this is even more rare, so just keep in mind that you can go for any of these 3 items and then finish it out with the Phase Boots in the lane for those early game items. And then the first big item you want to go for is Radiance, and honestly you can even skip Null Talisman, Wraith Band, or Soul Ring and go straight into this. That is greedy, and your inventory is a little bit sparse. If you do go straight for Radiance, you might want to stop in for just a Windlace or Infused Raindrops just to make you tankier, survivable, have a little more move speed, so your inventory isn't just like Boots, Quelling Blade, and the Magic Wand, so you have something else in there. And then I will say that people are going for Talisman of Evasion first in some games at higher MMRs, but I think for the most part in most MMRs, if you are just your average pub player, I think going for Sacred Relic first is still very good. That's probably what you should be doing just because it is so expensive. It's easier to get that gold early, as long as you don't feel like you're getting pressured too much and you're going to die. Maybe if you do need survivability, you can go for this as well, but like I said, Infused Raindrops is really good as well, just to kind of cap yourself off, give yourself a little more extra, mana regen that you're going to need, especially if you're skipping for that Null Talisman and just going really greedy for the Radiance. Then after the Radiance, you're going to be going for this core item build pretty much every single game. You're going to go for S&Y next, and yes, there are games when you can skip this, but I would say don't really think about that too much. This is just such a good item for what this hero wants to do. The only time I would really think about skipping this is going straight into BKB, and you might want to do that if you're losing the game and you feel like the only way you can fight is by having BKB, and that allows you to get into the fight, maybe turn it, maybe it's 20 minutes or something, 25 minutes, and it's like, hey, if I don't get BKB now, they're going to push our base, they're going to fight us, and I can't really do anything. That's the consideration that I would have, but for the most part, in most games, just go Radiance, S&Y, BKB. That's going to be your first 3 items almost every single time, and then right into the Ag Scepter. And Ags really is when this hero starts going online for real and becoming the beast that he really is. And this is what makes this hero good right now, is that extra ability Blood Mist does insane amounts of damage, and then that added shield that you can get from clearing through creeps and killing heroes just makes this hero so hard to deal with. And then you add the shard in there too, just amps up your damage and everything with that pure damage, extra lifesteal. And that's why S&Y is so good, is because you want that health regen and lifesteal amp to build up that shield when you do have your Ag, so it's very important to have S&Y in that build. And so you're going to be going for these items every single game, and these are the core items, and that's pretty expensive. This is a lot of gold to get to this point, and if you do get to this point, you have a high chance of winning, honestly, because this hero is such a beast. Once you get to this stage and hit this timing, it's really, really hard to deal with. And then in terms of late game items, obviously you still have a lot of room to grow even when you do hit your timing for this core build. And so really we're going to be focusing on surviving, getting more HP, more spell lifesteal, all that kind of stuff with this hero, amping up our magic damage, because really this hero is all about just surviving. If you can have the HP and survive in the fight and run around and do a ton of magic damage, like kind of in the AoE, that's really all we care about. So that's why the item that you can buy late game is either Bloodstone, which obviously makes you tanky, even harder to kill. You're going to have even more lifesteal with your spells, all that kind of stuff. It's great for just tanking up, or maybe you want to go in for Shiva's Guard because you feel like you need a little bit of extra armor based on the matchup, plus this amps up your damage as well, which is great. Or you can just go straight into the Refresher because maybe you think, okay, I don't really have a problem with being tanky. I don't really, need the Shivas. I just need BKB to run in. So you get these double BKBs. Maybe you have level 25. You get like 1 billion ruptures here. You get 4 rupture charges because of the Refresher. That's insane. That's a lot of damage. You can basically rupture almost every hero on the enemy team, which is kind of ridiculous. So you can just kill the entire enemy team, and that will definitely win you the game in a lot of cases. Or you can even round it out with a Dagon, because this item does give you extra spell lifesteal, which is kind of what you want. So whenever you cast it, you will just not only do a ton of damage, but then you will get more healing, which amps up your shield from your Ags, which is kind of insane. So that's why you can go for this. I would say maybe this is the one that you wouldn't want to go for. You'd maybe want to go for one or two of these items before you get this as like the ultra late game item once you synth your Ags. But that is what we're going to be going for, these more magic damage AoE kind of items, you know, with the regen and the spell lifesteal and all that kind of stuff, rather than the right click items that most carries go in the late game. Then lastly, for situational items, we have Wraithband, we have Soul Ring. You can go for those instead of the Null Talisman like I talked about, or you can just not get any of these small items. Then we have Manta Style, which you can go for instead of SNY, but you do want to go SNY pretty much every game if you can, because that Sange is so good with the health regen and lifesteal amp. You desperately want to go that if you can. Manta is really only in those certain situations, maybe against Storm Spirit with an Orchid, or like maybe Dark Willow, where there's a lot of annoying things you want to dispel, and you don't want to have to pop BKB for that, because maybe if you pop BKB, they can just disengage, and now you don't have BKB to fight. So that's really the only time I would go for Manta Style. Although this does synergize well with the Radiance, it's not really what you want to be doing once you get your, you know, larger items, because it's all about healing and stuff, and the SNY is really, really good for that. Plus, this SNY helps with that slow resistance and status resistance, so once you don't have BKB up, it is still harder to kill you. So that's why this one is just always going to be better in every single game if you can afford to go it and you don't desperately need that dispel. Then we have Eternal Shroud. This is just great to mix in to the build overall, kind of maybe after Radiance, after SNY, if the enemy is all about magic damage. That's really the only consideration, is like you look at their team, maybe they have one right clicker, the rest is magic damage, or maybe they even have 5 magic damage heroes. Just go for the Eternal Shroud, because it's going to make you so much tankier, and being tanky is really part of the focus of this hero's kit. Then to round out, we have all of these right-click items that are more traditional carry items. I mean, Moonshard's great. You are going to be right-clicking with Blood Rage and stuff in this build, so you can definitely go for that. You can also go for Swift Blink, more mobility, more right-click, all that kind of stuff. That's great. And then we have just, you know, Lincoln Sphere, good against Doom, good against these other things that really counter you in certain situations like SD and stuff like that. Then we have Bloodthorn. If you feel like you don't need to be tanky, you just need to silence and do more right-click damage and kill people quickly, you can definitely get a Bloodthorn. That's a super luxury item that you don't necessarily need on the hero, but if you can afford to get it, it's great. And then we have, obviously, Butterfly. We have Abyssal Blade, Scotty, Nullifier, Silver Edge, and Monkey King Bar. These are more right-click carry items. Maybe the Nullifier is the only one that's a little bit like, okay, you could maybe incorporate this into your kit, because if they have a lot of defensive capability, even though you're doing AoE damage, you do want to right-click them so you can get more heal off, so that is something to consider. And then I just put Mjolnir in here because that's the traditional like Bloodseeker build from back in the day where you go Maelstrom and stuff like that. There are people occasionally still trying it, but I think for the most part, you're not going to be going for that. So late game, you don't really want this in general. It's just that that is an option in general with how this hero was typically built. But otherwise, probably if you're going to get one last right-click item, it's going to be like Abyssal or maybe MKB in specific matchups, or like Silver Edge if you need to break someone, or Nullifier if you really need to, you know, dispel the enemy's supports and stuff like that as well. So those are the situational items for Bloodseeker. Now let's move on to the skill build. And then the skill build on this hero is actually pretty straightforward. You're going to get Blood Right every single time. Level 1, that's great for harassing, contesting runes, last-hitting creeps, all that kind of stuff. And then Thirst level 2, this is great for just obviously escaping from harass, getting into harass more, and as the lane progresses, the enemy heroes in the other lanes are also going to take harass and be lower HP. So this just is good to have at least 1 point in this. The only real consideration for this hero is obviously you're going to get Blood Right, you know, level 3, a second point in that, and then go for Blood Rage again. For the most part, maybe you can get a second point in Thirst. That is really the only consideration, maybe just skipping Blood Rage altogether because you feel like you can't really afford to, you know, use this on yourself and get that health drain because you're taking a lot of harass and you just need more move speed. But other than that, this is pretty safe to go for 1 point in each of these every single time and then max out Blood Right and obviously get Rupture at level 6 whenever you can. Once you have Blood Right maxed out, you're going to max out Blood Rage. This is great for farming and also doing damage in fights. And then lastly, you're going to max out your passive Thirst. Obviously, like I said, getting Rupture whenever you can at every single level. And then we have the talents here. You're going to be going for the left talents all the way until level 25. And that's because this version of the carry build for this hero is all about spell damage and just amping up that spell damage. So that spell amplification is going to be great to get, obviously, then the Blood Right damage with the amp of the spell damage. You obviously want that as well. This initial damage can be good, don't get me wrong, but it's just better to have this because you're going to be spamming this more for farming and everything like that. You're going to be using that more often. It's not just a purely like offensive team fight spell. This is just better overall. Then spell lifesteal is obviously really good because the whole point of the hero is getting lifesteal, whether it's on your right clicks or your spells or anything like that, so you can amp up that shield that you're getting when you get ags. And then lastly, 2 rupture charges is just OP because obviously when you use this on an enemy, they really can't do anything. And now, because there's arterial spray as a facet, when you right click them, you just do insane amounts of damage. It's kind of like absurd. And if you get refresher later in the game, like I already talked about, now you have 4 charges. That's kind of ridiculous. So that's a pretty straightforward talent tree. The build is obviously very easy for the skill build, not too many considerations there. And then the only real consideration is once you get past this main build in your items is what do you really want to go in that late game. But if you get into this, basic item build, you get to this timing at 30-35 minutes, you are going to be a beast and almost impossible to stop on this hero. So that is the Bloodseeker build for patch 7.37e. As always, guys, if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.